welcome to Milla's interviews where I focus on non-combat aspects of Amtgard with different people. And today we have the renowned, the famous Master Mask, Pescadillo Witherbloom here with us. So Pescadillo, would you like to introduce yourself and talk about how you started in Amtgard, your role,
Sure,
and where you're
no,
from?
no problem. So I am a post-pandemic player. I'm in my mid 40s. It's a very late time in the life to get started playing Amtgard when you're 40 years old, and I'm 45 now. So I'm just kind of right at around my 5 year mark in the game. Well, I guess four-year mark in the game. So started in 2021, and the main reason I got involved with Amtgard at all is I had played Amtgard a little bit in middle school, with records lost to the ages. This is pre-Orc. This is V6 or V7 or something. It's just a while ago. And I had remembered it when I looked in my backyard and saw my kids sword fighting each other with sticks. I've got three kids. They're now 10, 12, and 14. No, we're coming up on birthday season, but it's 10, 12, and 14 now. And they were, taking sticks and whacking each other. And I was like, well, you guys are going to get hurt doing that. Let's get you guys doing it the real way. So I hadn't been involved with Amtgard at all in a while, and it was tickling the back of my head. But I started by just buying the kids some like foam kendo sticks off of Amazon. It was the pandemic. That's what you do to entertain your kids during the pandemic, is you just buy shit off of Amazon and throw it at them like, just stop fighting. So, or if you're gonna fight with sticks, apparently. So I taught them what I remembered about sword fighting, which admittedly wasn't very much. But, I had taken a little bit of martial arts here and there. I'm not like amazing at it, but I took judo when I was younger. And so I knew a little bit about stance, and I figured those things would translate. They do. And I taught them how to sword fight a little bit. The natural next question was, this is fun, but are there other people we can fight? And that's when the Amtgard noise in the back of my head started making more noise and getting louder. And so I poked around online, and it was just a Saturday. Everything's still closed because of the pandemic at this point. We're actually fairly close to the period of time where the park's open. I jumped on the link that I found to the Discord for Emerald Glades, which is a park in Medina. They're about an hour south of Cleveland. I live in Cleveland, by the way. I would then go on, after playing at Emerald Glades for some time, to found a park in Cleveland proper that is now Burning Shores, which was a huge success story. Our numbers have fallen off a little bit this year, and a half-ish, but we made Barony at the end of the first year in the kingdom, and Duchy the end of our second year in the kingdom. So we were just really a lot of energy. It was just a really great environment. And if you come to Kingdom events, we may be very far to the northeast, like the very most remote, kingdom of our size from where we host our events. But a lot of our people are very big into networking, very social people, and you've probably run into some of our folks. But yeah, I started out as our park monarch. I got us on into the kingdom and handed it off to a series of other monarchs. I have not been back to doing monarch at the park. Took a little break, and from there, in the interest of making sure our park got seen and was involved, I did some Midgard leadership. I served as the PM at Midgard for a year. Got into leatherworking. I also do some amount of artism and stuff. I'm not like a super high level dragon or owl or anything like that, but I make stuff because it's was needed. We didn't have anybody who had armor, so it's like, I can make leather armor. I'll learn how to do that. And so I jumped into making leather armor to the best of my knowledge of how to do it. And, I built skill there too. Eventually I did a bunch of other stuff too. I've done event service. I started at event services, and then I've done gate. I did autocrat for the Scholomance event that was this past June. Really fun event. I just had a blast kind of helping to concept out what it meant to do Scholomance, right? That was just a really, really fun experience. Getting to intense, but fun experience autocrating that. I also joined the board of directors about maybe 2 years ago this November, It's at Bridge Wars. And I'm planning on running for a third term. I've been the chair of the board for the last 6 months, and I would like to do it for the full 3 years until I get term limited. So I've done a lot of leadership stuff. I've done a lot of arts stuff. I mostly play assassin. I do like to field. I'm not like a strictly non-com player, but I just kind of really try to be well-rounded, and I'm not like looking to get all the master hoods or all the knighting belts or any. That's not how I like to think about things. But I just like to be, well-rounded, be a good resource to the people around me, and at least have passing familiarity. I can teach a new player how to do stuff, and that's really my main focus. I think is I want to be a good resource for people who are like me, not that long ago, coming in full of excitement and not knowing how a damn thing works, and just making sure that there's like a new crop of leaders and a new crop of artisans and a new crop of service people and a new crop of fighters and a new crop of battle gamers. So yeah, that's me. Hi, I'm Pescadillo.
Yeah, I've been really excited to interview you, especially with your mask and leadership work. So let's jump
Sure.
right in. So, you've already explained really well what you do in Amtgard that isn't fighting. You're very multifaceted. If someone wants to get more involved in the non-combat aspects of Amtgard without fighting, where should they start?
I think that's so. I'm not always the biggest fan of the combat non-combat dichotomy. I'm going to start with that. I think that I fight. I shoot people with a crossbow. I shout words at them and then they die. I do all those things that are combat activities. But like and I fight in tournaments too. I'm not like the world's best at these things, but I do them. So I think of myself as a non-com person, but like as well, but like I still do combat, right? And I think that you can make the same argument about something like ANS. We have people in our community who do a lot of fighting and leadership and service and all that stuff, and but they're not artsy, you know. So we don't have a non-artisan classification we kind of assign to people. There are a lot of people who do ANS and fight and maybe even do some service, but like the idea of running for office, it sounds like politics and that sounds miserable, and they're right. But some people are built for that kind of masochism, and if you're not one of those people, we don't call them non-officers. So I think that's kind of and then I'm not even going to touch on people who don't ever do service, because like I have feelings about that, but it is a perfectly legitimate. You are paying to come to the game. You're like, I want to come, I want to fight. And I would actually say most people do at some point do some amount of service.
Hmm.
Um, but also, people need to go on service breaks. So for the period of time where you're taking a service break, are you a non-service person? Probably not. It's not. I just really don't like the idea of non-combat as an identity, I guess, is what I'm getting at. I think one of the cool things about Amtgard, as opposed to something like Belagarth or Hearthlight or any of our other sister games who also use foam sticks to whack their friends, one of the things that we are different about is the fact that you can play our game sitting in a comfortable folded chair near spawn. You can heal, you can res, you can put enchantments on people, you can do all of these things in a way that impacts the game. So is that person a non-combat person? I don't know how to answer that question. I don't think you have to swing a sword. And I think that that's kind of what's interesting. I think that the lines are a lot blurrier than we make them out to be. Now that I've dodged the
Clarify.
question,
Oh,
can you repeat it?
as a heads up, for non-combat, I'm talking about specifically the non-fighty side of Amtgard. Like when you're not in a battle game, when you're service, cratting, indulging in ANS, role playing, things like that. That's what
Yeah,
I'm referring to. Now, so I also agree. A lot of people think that, would consider me non-combat, and that's awesome. But it's also hilarious that you mentioned sitting in a lawn chair, because that's what I'm planning on doing at October event. I've even
like,
made a little Amtgard newspaper with my swell list on the inside, and I'm going to just chill. So
mhm.
I do agree that those lines are very blurred. I mean, honestly, best of both worlds. You can do both, and it shouldn't be, exclusive of the other. So
Yeah.
if someone wants to get more involved in the non-combat aspects of Amtgard without fighting, where would they start?
Okay, that I think is a good way of putting it. You may have said it exactly that way, but I had a rant on deck, and I kind of needed to get it out there. Okay, so I think it really depends upon where your level of interest is. But I think if we're talking about at your park, I think the easiest way to get involved is to do something like reading, bean counting, game support, right? Those kinds of things are really helpful. There are games that cannot fire if you don't have people willing to do that kind of service at the park of helping make sure that the games run smoothly. So if you've been doing that for a while, or like you understand fighting and you've been paying attention, maybe you have a background in martial arts, but you're like have a health problem or something, infusion ports, pacemakers. Like we have people who we have to say, you want to fight, and I love that you want to fight, but I cannot let you be on our field. People
Mm-hmm.
like who have those conditions who really shouldn't be fielding for health and safety reasons can reeve. So if you have some background in fighting and you've had to move to non-combat elements and you're kind of trying to find your footing, I think things like reaving can also be really useful. Also, reaving isn't that hard to teach to a non-combat person. I think there's a like this idea that reeves have to be skilled fighters themselves. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, but I think that sort of thing is helpful at the park. If you have an artistic streak, obviously make some arts and sciencey type stuff, or if you like just construction, like pick up something like leatherworking. I mean, that's I, when it comes to doing arts and sciences, my hot take, and I know there will be people who disagree with this, but that's okay. Um, I think you should look into areas of creative work and construction work that nobody else around you is doing. Now, that's hard on the one hand because you can't get direct one-on-one interactions with people in your community who do that thing too. So you're not going to get one-on-one lessons easily necessarily if you're deliberately doing something that nobody else around you is doing, or very few people are doing. But it does let you stand out, and it does let you contribute something that can't be found elsewhere. So if nobody else at your park really does, like maybe you've got somebody who makes armor and another person who makes swords, and like there's a bunch of owl path stuff going on at your park, but no one else really draws or paints. Well, my friend, you've got a great opportunity to go out and make some awards. Like they're really pretty straightforward if you have a grasp on art. Like, I mean, I'm not really much of an artist, but I have made awards for people because it's interesting to me to do that sort of thing, and to, even if it's a little outside of my comfort zone. So I think those are things you can do at park. You can also consider running for office. I feel like I've seen plenty of people do the role of champion without actually fighting. You have to have a little bit of a head about battle gaming. You have to feel comfortable checking weapons at least, but you don't actually have to field the champion. And I'd actually like argue that maybe it's better for the champion to not field because you can set that game up and then you can either bean count your own game or make yourself available for the new people who come by wandering up and say, "Oh, what's this? What Amtgard?" Um, mangling the name or whatever. And you can still, even if you're not going to do combat, you can understand combat rules. You can teach yourself, you can learn how to like teach people the rules of combat. Champion is like the classic. Like I honestly think most people who are, all things held equal, champion is probably the easiest point of entry. It's a lot of work, but somebody's got to do it. And if you don't do combat, it actually kind of allows you to focus on contributing as an officer rather than it being a part-time job that you do when you're not fielding. So that's all park level stuff. And I do think it's important to get started at the park level. If you're going to your first event, I think that the way you get started there, especially is probably more like a service work thing. I mean, if there's arts and sciences competitions, you can submit some stuff you've done if you've got like artistic background or whatever. But I think just, sit a gate shift. Sitting gate's great. You get to meet a whole bunch of people, and you can make contacts with people that you'll see later at the event. And it's not like you have to ask their name because you already did that when you were taking their money or ticket. And so that kind of helps too. I like gate shifts. It's a very social thing to do, or either that or helping with feast. Feast is a little bit more work if you're not don't really like talking to people quite as much. Feast is also a thing where people will at least see that you are there and working and helping. And generally, I think I will probably really sit up and take notice when I see a brand new player go and do feast work because I consider it some of the more challenging and stress laden service work that we have. I don't think you should probably jump right into leadership past your park right away. It makes a lot of sense to start at your park. That work is harder in the terms of the quantity of work, but easier in terms of the stakes, generally speaking.
Yeah.
The higher up you go, if you go to the Grand Duchy, or if you've got one, or your kingdom, the decisions you make impact a lot more people. So it's better to do kind of the training wheels version of it at your local park. I think it kind of helps. I mean, I'm not like the world's biggest fan of the focusing on the ladders, but I think that the ladder systems for everything other than sword and battle, like they kind of are useful in the sense of giving people an idea of what to do, like the things that you can do that the community values enough to stick awards on them. Role playing is also fun, and I do encourage people to role play. Obviously, like, I mean, my reputation, I'm sure we'll talk about it in a little bit. Role playing is a good idea, but I actually kind of don't think it's a great choice as a starting point. I feel like role play is something you should do once you've been around the community for a little bit. And I believe that first off, I view role play largely as a form of service. I think that that's a very key part of how I think role play should be done. So I wouldn't, and I think you can't do that until you've kind of gotten a feel for how tolerant our community is of role play and what kinds of role play we are tolerant of and which ones our community has kind of decided are a little annoying. And so if you can, I think that that's not a great one to jump right in on.
I completely agree, although I'm also conflicted about that because my first keep 2019, I actually ended up RPing in Night Quest, and that led me to a lot of different paths and stuff. Now, I will say that I did have experience with Amtgard for a while before that, but like
Yeah.
it can be definitely if it's a role that you think
I
you could
think that
do.
you have a very good point there. Night Quest is a different animal. I'm
It
more
really
about like
is.
for me. You're right. I leaned right into the thing that I prefer to do, which is more immersive role play. Night Quest is actually a good place to dip a toe too, because first off, you don't have to worry about costuming or character, or like somebody probably put all that together for you already, like your quest crat. So it's more like you get to step in and just fill a role, and it's time boxed. And that kind of role play is actually, I would agree with you. That is actually that is a good way
Mhm.
of getting your feet wet.
Yeah, now doing something like a guild master for a kingdom event where a lot of it is improv and you're making up stuff and you can kind of really do your own thing with it. Different beast.
Okay. Yeah.
Different beast altogether.
Yeah,
So,
that or just, but I would actually say the kind of character work that I did, I spent a lot of time thinking about it. I spent a lot of time observing the other people who did role play, and I sort of very deliberate. Like it took a lot of thought to put together a character that I could play for 3 straight days and not annoy everybody around me, or more accurately, annoy them in the fun kind of way, as opposed to just making them want me to go away.
knowing how to not necessarily toe the line, but make sure that you're not really crossing over that is
Mm-hmm.
an entirely that's its own
Roleplay is
ballgame.
actually really hard. There's a reason we didn't have any master masks for a long time. Roleplay is very high risk, high reward in a way that I think a lot of people don't fully understand. And given that our community has moved to more of an role play optional kind of mindset, we're not an immersive LARP. We're just not. We're a sports league with a fantasy aesthetic. You can role play if you want to, but again, there's the annoying problem. If you do role play in a way that's annoying, you will alienate yourself. And learning how to ensure that you're role playing in a way that doesn't alienate yourself, that takes skill, and skill has to be built and all of that stuff.
So, have you ever inspired anyone else to try out the non-combat side of Amtgard, and how did it work out?
Oh yeah, yeah. So we have a number of non-com players just at our park, and a lot of the time it's as simple as asking. It's, hey, would you mind counting beans for us? Hey, would you mind holding this stopwatch and just get shouting time when non-com stuff is not, especially as a part of the game, which is mostly of what you do at park. It's not hard. It just requires you to give a shit, really. And I think motivating people to give a shit, some people can't be motivated to give a shit, but if they came out and they're sitting around, people are generally pretty happy to have something to do that makes them feel like they're involved, even if they feel like they can't or shouldn't field. So I think it's as simple as just asking. Don't be annoying about it. Like, don't harass people, obviously, but invite them. I think that's how I like to think of it, is making sure people feel invited. And I think a lot of folks who are there but not involved are actually looking for an excuse to be involved in some way. Now, like, sometimes it'll be, you've got a 14, 15-year-old kid who's fields with you guys and their parent comes out, and, I think that is actually a really good example of the sort of person who you can, like, talk into doing non-combat stuff. A lot of the time, if you get somebody involved in that sort of stuff at park, there's a high likelihood at some point they pick up a boffer sword and start fighting themselves. Non-combat participation can be a gateway drug, is my point. And I think that's not a terrible thing, though. I think it's fine that we have that. But I think that is really what it's just all about, is it's inviting it. People fighting, too, is the same way. Like, for the combat side of the game. Park days shouldn't be that competitive anyway. There's always plenty of room for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing to come out and swing a sword around. We've had, people who are like in their 60s and 70s come out and field at park before, which
Wow.
is, it's lit. Those people are like, okay, listen, old people are sneaky. They are very sneaky. They know that you're going to be tempted to take it easy on them, and they will show you no mercy. It's beautiful. I like when we've had like people in their 60s and even early 70s come out and field. They are often better at what they're doing than a brand new 14, 15, 16-year-old, because they have some amount of life experience that probably translates in some way. But fighting is also like very effective when it's conservative. Anyway, this is a non-combat discussion, but I just want to say, invite old people to field. They have way more spunk than you think. They're sneaky as hell. They're good at conserving their energy. And a lot of the time, like, there's a part of them that wants to be a kid again, and this is a good way to indulge them.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if they just say, my grandson would love this, and give him a business card and say bye.
Yeah, I actually really liked that you mentioned that, because I feel like non-combat, it's definitely a good part of the game that tries to, really incorporate inclusivity as much as possible. So you
Mm-hmm.
saying that, actually, I really love that. And the thought, just imagining that is really, it's adorable. I love it.
I will put a business card into absolutely the hand of absolutely anybody who walks up and watches us for more than 30 seconds. I'm going to go give you a business card. Now, I don't know why you're watching us. I don't know. Maybe you just think we're a bunch of weirdo nerds. But maybe you kind of want to try that, but you're a little nervous to ask. Maybe you have a friend or a coworker or a grandson or somebody who might be into our game, and you're just sitting there thinking about it, but you don't want to be we sometimes look like a public, like a private club out doing a thing in public. It's very easy to think we aren't approachable, but like, that's the purpose of park days. They're like our recruitment funnel. So if we can, we should try to invite those people to participate in any way that they might find compelling, and that can be combat and that can be non-combat.
You can tell how you're incorporating your leadership aspects into this as well, which is awesome, because I actually would like to talk to you about your leadership, service, and cratting experience.
So, leadership, I've done all of the roles now. Some of them I haven't finished terms because I've run for another thing or whatever. But I was founding monarch at Burning Shores, and I was promoted. Basically, I was regent at the Grand Duchy level, and like
Hmm.
2 weeks into my term, I became Grand Duke. I've done that one at those two levels. I've done I guess I had that like 2 weeks of regent experience at the Grand Duchy, but that's it for my regent experience. It's one of the things I actually kind of need to go do is do a full term of that. I did a full year of prime minister at Midgard. I did park champion at Burning Shores for a term, and I'm actually about ready to I'm currently running unopposed for champion second go round this winter. So, and currently I have spent the last 6 months, I think it is 9 months, as GMR at Burning Shores as well. So, Monarch and Prime Minister at Midgard, and everything but Prime Minister at Burning Shores. I have not served in Kingdom Monarchy yet, but I have, as I mentioned earlier, I've spent just about 2 years on the board, and the last 6 months of that as chair, running for a third term. Board you can only do for three terms, and then your term limited. You got to take a 1 year break, and I want to serve the whole shebang. I've done Park Monarchy and Midgard Monarchy concurrently with my time on the board as well. Being chair and balancing other stuff can be a lot, but it's not that bad. You know, a lot of your chair work you're just doing in the evenings, and you do have to do things like write policy and plan an agenda and all that stuff. But it's not like super time involved, and usually your stuff's all in the middle of the week for board, and weekends you can have free to go out and hit your friends with sticks. As far as service goes, I just try to pitch in wherever I can. I spent a year and a half in character at every Kingdom event as Edgar Le Pen, a French aristocrat. During that time, I spent a lot of that doing service work, and I think that's actually doing role play feeds service, and it makes service easier and more fun. So I definitely I think that's probably the main thing I would say I've contributed service wise, is trying to encourage people to learn the things that I learned while playing Edgar. Edgar's dead now, and then his corpse was Grand Duke, and then his he was sort of reanimated, and now he's dead. I don't really have aside from something like time travel shenanigans or something like that, I don't really plan to play Edgar again. Certainly not in any sort of recurring or regular way. I'm kind of in kicking around ideas. I'm not trying to rush it or whatever, but I will be playing other characters again at the Kingdom level. You can't really stop me, and so I've got an intent to do more of that, and I will of course be doing that while serving, whether that's sitting volunteer shifts or doing craft work. It doesn't really matter. As far as actual craft jobs, I've done Gate, I've done Quest. I did Quest at Battlecry in 2024, and I did Gate at I can't even remember. I want to say it was Bridge Wars of 2023, maybe. I don't remember. I did event services, co-crowded with Havoc a number of years ago, and again, auto-cratting, Scholomance. Not exactly. That was I did that sort of half-in character, and I felt like that was a really interesting way to explore role play. I'm usually a very full send, overcommit to the bit kind of role player, and playing a sort of pastiche of myself as Chancellor Pescadillo, which was just a very different version of who Pescadillo is that was a lot of fun to play around with. I've got some upcoming stuff too, I suppose. I'm basically part of the cast, I guess, for a March event, which is going to be very battle arena themed. The plan for the event calls for 2 ring announcers, and as of right now, that's me and Amdare. And Amdare and I we banter really well. So I'm looking forward to trying to channel as much pro wrestling commentator as I can into working with Adam on that. I feel like that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm also on a bid for Battlecry 2026. We are looking to do the Odyssey themed thing. I'm Warcrat for that event. I will probably be playing Hermes, and I will probably have a bear midriff, and that will be a lot of fun. Ratan is heading that bit up, by the way, and if you're interested in playing a character from the Odyssey, or if you're because it's 2025, I should also say Epic the Musical, which is another one of the things we're trying to work as much of that in as we can. So I've just kind of played around with a lot of different stuff. I've made battle games, but I've never really pushed myself to like, I don't know. It's like the Smith path, right? Like that's something I guess I want to eventually work my way down the Smith path. Yes, sure. But like, I swear to God, if I have to think about it in terms of the awards, it makes me not want to do it. So I just want to do Warcrat, and that's how I have to make myself think about it. Otherwise, I'll make myself miserable. Don't do awards, kids. Don't get hit. Don't get hooked on them. I just like playing around and trying different things. Guess I haven't really done. I mean, aside from like doing multiple terms in a row, which I kind of think of as one long thing, I haven't really gone back except for this is going to be the first time I'm repeating a role, coming back to park to serve as champion again. And that's kind of, I think, where I'm getting to, is where I've done a lot of different stuff, and I'm okay with repeating stuff, but I like kind of sampling all that Amtgard has to offer in terms of leadership and service, really. Oh, and I've also taught classes too. I've taught the Rose Mask class, I want to say 3 or 4 times now. And like, I did it during a period of time when I was playing Edgar. And one of the key things that I always would do in teaching that class was drop the character, because there were a lot of people at these events, especially towards, the end of Edgar's story, where they had never seen me out of character. So yeah, and that was always really fun. Wait, you mean you're not really French? Yeah, no, I'm not French. I'm just a guy. Just a
Dave
guy
was one of
doing a
those
bit.
people. I'm not sure if you realize, but Dave, my husband, he actually thought you were French for the longest time, and then one time he heard you just talking and he was like, "No." I think it
It
really messed
sucks
with
to
him
see
for a little
behind the
bit.
curtain sometimes. I can tell you a funny story about that.
Mhm.
My brother-in-law was married to a French woman for many years. And they separated, and also many years ago. And he's not like a heavy Amtgarder, but he comes out sometimes and he'll swing some foam. He's not like a lifer. He's not a junkie the way that some of us are, but he participates sometimes. And the first time I came out to park, because in addition to doing this at Kingdom events, I spent 6 months of that time in character as Edgar every week at park. And one of those earlier weeks, my brother-in-law was there, and he and I have obviously, we'd known each other for over a decade at that point, and he didn't recognize me. And that's how I was like, "Ooh, I'm onto something here. This is, I could get used to this kind of thing." So yeah, Edgar was like a very unrecognizable version of me. For those who never met Edgar, watching this at home or whatever, the Edgar look is like, I tend to wear very bright colors in my day to day. Edgar wears all black. I am, you may have noticed, very bald. Edgar, long black wig. Edgar is clean shaven. I lose all of this every time I play Edgar. It takes me solid, like when I'm playing Edgar and I have a gap, it's like a solid 3 to 4 months before I feel like I look like myself again every time I play. Edgar, like I tend, especially when doing Amtgard, I tend to wear baggier clothes. Edgar, black leggings, preferably black leather leggings, very frilly shirts, but like black leggings. I designed Edgar to be very obnoxious, and a fun sort of antagonisty bad guys, but like mid-tier. Like I was very deliberately a mid-tier character. And so I was like, what's the most annoying thing I can do on the field? So Edgar pretty much always uses a crossbow. Crossbow is solidly an Edgar weapon. And he'll stab people with a dagger too. He's not above it, but like shoot first and only get your hands dirty if you really must, is very much Edgar's MO. And he has a very pronounced French accent. And yeah, I got to the point where I would, especially when I was first playing Edgar, I would get done with an event and I would just find myself slipping into a French accent just in my normal everyday life. I can talk at very great length about like roleplay stuff. I know that this is sort of more wide ranging. Roleplay is part, I think, of non-com But it can also be part of combat too. Like I fielded as Edgar. Every verbal that I gave, that I, cat would cast at people, it was always done with the French accent, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. It got a lot of reactions, and a lot of people remember that character very, very fondly, which is exactly why he's dead now.
What's the most challenging or fun part of coordinating different things for an event?
I like concepting. That's my favorite part of the event. I want to try everything, but I also don't necessarily want to do everything the way everybody else does it. So when I did Gatecrat, I made the entire, like, it was the pirate event, and I did the whole thing like, this is a dock, right? This isn't the gate. This is immigration. And so we made passports, and you got your passport stamped when you came in, and it had like sitemap and notes and spell list stuff, and it was just like a nice little utility. Actually, it was a nice little passport, and you got it stamped with an immigration stamp. I don't know if you can see that. You got it stamped with a little immigration stamp when you came in. It's
Oh,
just
that's
this nice
cute.
little role play forward thing to add. When we did Scholomance, we didn't just. That was my first time autocrating, and I didn't tackle like a known quantity like any of our major events that have like we do every year, like Battlecry and Bridge Wars. I didn't do one of our like recurring but not yearly events like War of the Phoenix or Guild Wars. I wanted to make my own thing, and I wanted to build something that was interesting and different. Interesting and different is something that you're going to hear me say a lot, by the way, because I think that that's that sort of being willing to break, not completely reinventing the wheel, but being some amount of creative in that. I found that really interesting, and coming up with like, I don't know. I'm just a big fan of mashup culture too, generally. So like being able to take something like Scholomance, which was like wizard school tropes and frat boy movie tropes, and just bang them together was just really, really satisfying. And I think if I, autocrat again, like I wouldn't mind doing Scholomance a second time at some point down the road. But I also, I wouldn't hate the idea of coming up with other new concepts either. Like that also sounds really fun to me. Is coming up with new ideas. I think that's part of what I love about autocrating is the idea of going through and really paying attention to every little element of what we do and thinking about how we could do it better, how we could do it different. One of the things that I've really liked over the last year is digital gate, like fully digital, no cash, got to prepay for a ticket, and like that opens up new ground too. So now gate doesn't have to be a location; it's just a job. You can have roaming gate. You can have like gates closed at 10 p.m. Okay, cool. There's a sign and a number. It says text this number, and they'll meet up with you somewhere, scan your ticket, put the wristband on you after they check your ID, and be like, yeah, and you can pick up your gate trinkets or whatever tomorrow. But like you're signed in, you're done, like you're
Mhm.
good. Being able to do that is something that we can do now that we're like fully digital, but we couldn't do that when we were tethered to a cash box. Closing out gate now is like hella easy because you don't have to sit there counting money for 2 hours and hoping you get it done before court starts or whatever. So yeah, I think being able to look at different elements of the event is really exciting, and trying new things. Scholomance also introduced a class system that was very different than what we've done before.
Mhm.
One of the like, I really like the idea of coming up with sort of guiding philosophies for how to like approach things. So when you are like evaluating your process, you can be like, all right, what's our underlying value, right? Like, what do we want to like? How do we want to make this feel like this is ours? And one of the things I landed on was battle cry is high school, this is college. And so where we landed on that was like progressive classes. So you could take leatherworking 101, 201, and 301. And that was something we'd never really done as a kingdom, was say, like, here's a class, and it's not just beginner stuff. Like Battlecry is a great place to go get your feet wet in a bunch of different classes. And I'm not knocking that. I think that's actually more important than what Scholomance does. But I also think having something like Scholomance to where when you've done Battle Cry and you've tooled like a leather bracer or something, like being able to go and say, what's next? Like, how do I progress? Not just how do I learn the basics, but how do I do higher quality stuff? That's actually really compelling and not something that any event I'm aware of has ever even thought to offer, much less actually tried to do it. So I
Mhm.
love that process of sort of working with my crats, encouraging them to challenge like the common idea of what the event or what the process has to be, and say, how do we like throw away like how we've done it before, like just, or maybe don't throw it away, but just set it aside for a moment. If you're starting from scratch, Rising Winds like is not even in your head. You're just running some event, right? That has nothing to do with Amtgard. How would you do it then? Like how would you like decontextualize yourself from the history of this and tell me how you would do it? Like I have some ideas. You are going to have some ideas too. That's why we're working together. Let's bounce some ideas off of each other and see if we can't come up with something new. And I think trying new things is really good because that's how progress gets made. And not every good idea turns into a good execution either.
Mhm.
And then there's also the process afterwards. Like one of the things I did after Scholomance is I basically offered exit interviews to everybody on my crap team. Like, all right, let's go over everything that we tried, what worked, what didn't. Like, how do we like take the good things that we learned and the challenges that maybe set us back. Like we didn't anticipate this element of this plan. We think that the plan overall is good. We just need a little refinement, and now it'll like it had more potential maybe than what we've been doing, but it didn't execute better than what we've been doing historically. It's not necessarily a reason to throw out an idea. You can go through and do that refinement process. So I really like that as well. I like taking good ideas and sort of working them through the pipeline of brainstorming, early pre-event refining, event refining on the fly, and then sort of after the event doing another passive refinement and just constantly massaging things until you get like a new normal, hopefully. And that's where
Mhm.
we are, for example, with Digital Gate. We've had every event in 2025 has been cashless. And that's just been a huge improvement for our kingdom in terms of cash handling, in terms of risk. It's easier on the treasurer. It means that, like, when someone comes in and sets up their camp, and then they go, "Oh, I don't have cash and I didn't buy a ticket." Well, you don't really have an excuse to say, "Well, I can go hit the ATM." No, like we told you for 3 months leading up to the event, this is cashless. So
Yeah.
it removes a certain number of excuses too, I think, which is also kind of nice.
You've given me a lot of awesome insights into leadership, not only with events, but on different aspects of the different local levels of Amtgard. So now I would like to go into more about Rob, Arts and Sciences
Sure.
Edition. I noticed you do leatherworking. What other arts and crafts do you do that do not include RP?
I actually do consider role play past a certain level. Like some forms of role play I consider to be arts and some I don't. I think that like the immersive stuff that I've done, I think that qualifies. But I do some amount of ceramics, although I'm kind of a little bit rusty. I haven't
Hmm.
really sat at a potter's wheel in about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I really need to get back to it, but right now it's just like something I kind of had to set aside for the moment. Right. I don't do, again, more defunct kind of thing. It's not very Amtgardy, but I used to do stand up comedy. I spent a number of years as a stand up comedian, basically a stand up comedy musician. I'm a little rusty on those things too. But that's something I kind of want to get back to. At some point, I'm going to just casually roll up on a Bardic and I'll just have written a bunch of new stuff. It's a down the road thing. I'm not like in a huge hurry on it though. I'll do Bardics periodically when I get the chance. Again, leatherworking is probably the thing that I've done the most tangibly. For a long time, I didn't really like doing, like, I appreciate visual art, but I thought of myself as not somebody who did visual art. And I found that I actually can really appreciate visual art if it's on functional items, right? So
Yeah.
I do like making ornate leather, pouches or, cuirasses or, other armor. Like that I can get behind, right? Decorative stuff on functional items, I found that I really love that actually. So that I think is what it took for me to sort of also branch out. Like I've made a couple of like, physical awards, and one of them didn't even go out. But the other one was Sarjenka, who was from Emerald Glades. She got her lady title not that long ago, and I got the chance to make a cool little shadow box that had lights inside of it, and it was like 2 layered. So like I had a paper layer on the inside that was like a poem to the moon goddess sort of faded in the back, and then was able to like handwrite like on a second layer. So it was like multi-layered, and it just came out really well, and I was really happy with it. That's like a physical award that was a thing that I did not that long ago, and I'd like to do more of that actually, I think. But I've also done the award that didn't go out was just a square of leather that I did decorative. Really liked that process, and I would do that again. And I've actually had some fun ideas about how to do just take leatherworking, and rather than making a leatherworking like functional piece, making actual art pieces that do new and interesting things. I think that's actually really exciting, and something I kind of want to get into doing at some point in this year. And I think that's kind of where I am, right? I'm not like a high-end awards artist, but like I think that's something I'd like to work a little bit more towards. I've gotten the taste for it now. There are a handful of things that I see so many talented artists doing in our community that I very deliberately steer away from. Not that I like have no interest or like don't appreciate the art form. Far from it. It's just I feel like I'm always just really interested in like when I see everybody going one way, I want to go the other. So like a good example of this is, and probably the most obvious example, is chain work. I think there's a lot of insanely talented chain artists out there, and the idea of taking something like that to a Dragon Master or arts competition, it just feels like there's so many other chain artists who are just leagues ahead. Like they were doing it for a decade before I even was aware it was a thing people did. You know what I mean? That territory. And again, it's not that I would never do these things. It's just that it's not something that I necessarily like. If doing leatherworking, stitching pieces together, that's the thing that I do. Like when a lot of chain artists talk about how it's like a nice background thing that you can do with your hands while you're watching TV or whatever. I was like, well, I've got something like that. If I really feel the need to do that, I'll make a nice pair of like greaves or something that's got a big stitch up the front and takes a while. And I'll, crank out some of those, or a belt pouch or something. Like I've got things that'll fill that like sort of hand stimulation kind of while watching media niche. I don't know. Uh, as I said earlier, I have a really strong inclination to go dip my toe into every pool ever. I can't do that with everything. And so I want to pick and choose the things and the places that I go. I think that if there is an ANS thing that I have not done at all and want to dip my toe into next, probably making garb. Like, I really love the idea of buying a sewing machine and making some of my own tunics. It feeds my RP habit too. Like, it means I can like make costuming pieces that are going to be better than what I buy at like a Spirit Halloween or whatever. So yeah, I think that's probably the other thing I'm kind of intrigued by. I'm not claiming I've done it at all yet, but I've made some things that probably touch on Garber. The headdress that I wore as Sir Nunos during Dark Badger's Knighting, I made that myself, and that
Oh.
was really fun to do. And that probably qualifies as Garber. It's not like fabric work, but it's definitely like a worn aesthetic piece. So, you know, I stitched together like an old, like a throw that I like a sort of dark gray throw that I just bought off of Amazon, and just made what is essentially a tabard out of it, just with some rough stitches as like a vest to wear while playing Sir Nunos as well. So technically, I guess they made the garb for that, but like it was very like the skill level on it was so low that it's almost not worth counting.
What projects are you currently working on or have recently finished?
So my next project is a replacement belt from 2 years ago, I think it was. Rosalind, I made a belt for Rosalind, and I sealed it using a product that I hadn't used before. And this thing just stripped all
Oh,
of the paint off of it. It just
oh
peeled
no.
like a sunburn. It's notably not dyed or painted or any of those things. Finding the time to make projects is kind of tricky. I'm really bad about taking pictures of my projects too. Like, usually the thing that is exciting to me about a project, the best part of it, is giving it to somebody, right? I make a lot of projects as gifts. I do a lot of commissions. And so, like, I have things that I made for myself. Like, my page belt is a few years old at this point. I'm Paige Jester Yorick, by the way, for anybody counting at home. I made my page belt a few years back, and I still wear it. It's kind of showing its age at this point, but I still love it. And I kind of like leather goods. The way that they age just has, like, they get better with age. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Leather is, it's skin, it tans over time with exposure to the sun. So leather goods that have been out in the sun a lot, they just grow a natural depth of color that I really like a lot. It's not leatherworking, but I do have, I mean, I guess it's technically leatherworking. I bought a bunch of furs not too long ago, and I'm kind of
Ooh.
thinking about doing like a fur collar on my cloak. I recently was visiting Rickus down in Columbus, and he's got a laser etcher. And I made these. Those of you who went to Battle Cry, you probably saw some of these floating around. These were belt pouches that we marble dyed on site, and people were able to make them. Those are all laser cut using Rickus's laser cutter thing. I made some test patches, and I was actually like dyed them black, and I was planning on painting them true color. And I looked at them and I'm like, nah, this just looks good like it is. So I just stitched those onto the shoulders of my cloak, and I also, while I was at it, I replaced the neck of the neck closure. It's a Gmaw cloak, and I really love that cloak a lot. But the leather work, like, it was very clear. It looked to me like it was like a store bought piece that not. It wasn't something she made by hand. I don't think, maybe, but it didn't look handmade. It looked, I bought a closure and stitched it on, kind of thing. And I replaced it with one I'd made myself. So that's, I think, one of the things, that and adding steel furniture repair plates to my armor
Mm.
recently, because the new rules change takes that from being like a 4 point armor up to a 6 point armor. So, like, my chest plate and my back are now 6 points. Not that it really comes up very often, but it was a cool project. And I think that's kind of what I've been enjoying, is going through and taking pieces that I've either purchased or made myself a while back and punching them up. I think that's kind of an interesting thing to explore, is taking a look at your old projects and thinking, how can I modernize this? How can I make it better? My armor cuirass also was just a single piece. I was very new to leatherworking and completely inexperienced at armor making when I made this piece, and so it was just unitized from here down to, like, below my belly button. And if you've ever worked and made armor, you know that you want the chest piece to stop at your belly button, so that when you sit down, the whole thing doesn't come up and make you look like a Ninja Turtle. I retrofitted it and I left the back piece alone because that was fine. And I already had two attachment points here and here. And there was a stitching line kind of across my belly button. So what I did was I just seam ripped that whole stitch and just stitched each of them just as with an aesthetic stitch across. And that made the two pieces collapse into each other. So now my armor allows me to sit in a chair, which is a very big upgrade, actually, in terms of mobility. It's made me really like wearing my armor again. I think after I did that, I wore my armor more last winter than I did in, like, the 2 years prior. Making it was like a creative thing. It was like, and also I wanted to be able to wear armor if I needed it. And, as I'm getting older, I'm actually still finding myself enjoying doing crossbow a little bit more than, being the fighty wacky guy. My ankles appreciate me more for standing in the back and shooting people rather than trying to run up on them and do all kinds of footwork and stuff. And yeah, Edgar taught me the value of being lazy, if we're going to be very honest. Wearing armor is great. Ohio Renfest is going on right now. I'm probably going to wear it when I go to Ohio Renfest in a couple weeks.
Now let's talk about role playing and your persona. Oh
Well,
boy.
Pescadillo is not a character. Hilariously, it's the character I probably play the least. I usually use Pescadillo for online role play. Pescadillo is the like archetype of a very low int high whiz character. He's and as big a gap between those two things as I can make him. Very kind-hearted, very thoughtful, very considerate, but also barely able to read, completely unfamiliar, like does not understand the situations he's in a lot of the time. I genuinely, I have 3 kids. I'm a dad. Pescadillo is an excuse to play dumb and do dad jokes when I first started with that character. And I pretty much exclusively use the Pescadillo character on the Burning Shores Discord when we do RP. I haven't done it a whole lot in a while, but yeah, I have a number of other characters I've played though. Some of them like once, some of them recurring, and really only Edgar have I played as an immersive, ongoing, like semi-permanent character.
Mhm.
I
So,
already touched a little bit of base on what Edgar's look was like, but Edgar was essentially very arrogant and condescending and thought of himself as better than everybody else, except for members of Kingdom, Monarchy, and Knights. He was a social climber. He was very and very very classist, which was felt like a safe place to explore, given how sort of it's kind of taken as read that most people in Amtgard understand that classism is, bad. But I feel like there's a lot of place to play in terms of lampooning classism, um,
mhm.
especially when it's clearly done within a fantasy aesthetic, right? And you can't really do other forms of shitty behavior like racism and sexism, because those things are those are much more dangerous and a
Yeah.
lot more pervasive. And racism and sexism look the same where regardless of where you are,
Mhm.
whereas classism is very, what do you mean you don't own land, like there's
Mhm.
old throwback forms of classism that are very clearly divorced from our current context of what classism is. So Edgar was a really fun excuse to play around with, playing a character who was undeniably shitty. Like Edgar was not a good human being, and if you thought Edgar was
Yeah.
a good human being, you should probably examine yourself a little bit.
So I have some specific
Yeah,
questions for you. So is Pescadillo, is he more of a pen name for you, would you say, in the grand scope of things, or would you say there's a major difference between you and him? Because I know you mentioned that he's an
I
excuse for you to
dear
do
God, I
dad
hope
jokes.
so. I don't play characters like in order to be a thinly veiled pastiche of myself very often. I guess at some point, if you're working as an actor, which I think what I do definitely crosses the line from role play into acting. Like, I, I'm not saying I'm the only person who does, but like there is a difference between role playing and acting. I think it's a complicated question, right? Because on the one hand, in order to play that character and to feel alive and to feel like I am actually talking to this character, that's the experience I'm having. I don't feel like I'm talking to a guy wearing a funny mask or something. I feel like I'm actually interacting with Edgar or any of the other characters I've played, and that's really important to me, that experience. So it's really important to me that people felt like they were interacting with the character rather than, me, the human. However, building a compelling character requires you to, at the very least, have some amount of empathy and understanding for that character.
Oh yeah, of
Like if you play a
course.
character you hate, you're going to just fight it the entire time and you're not going to be able to be
Mm.
consistent. So I would definitely say that, like, we talk about in the context of therapy, we talk about like shadow work and stuff. Role play is a really common thing that's done in therapy. I don't think it's great to use the community as your therapist, but I think some of the things that you learn in therapy, you can then, and again, I would not recommend anybody start out role play by doing this, but you can take some of the things you've learned during therapy and and like maybe about parts of yourself that you're not proud of, parts of yourself that you're kind of maybe ashamed of, inclinations, and you can like actually get some amount of catharsis by playing a character who's deliberately very crappy in that sort of way,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of by doing so defeat that part of yourself. So there is some amount of that that does go on, right? Like
Okay.
I definitely do have a tendency to go on at great length and to be arrogant, and it's like I have to make sure, like it's an active thing that I have to do to make sure I'm not that when I play Edgar, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not going too far with it. And in my personal life, I would say that playing Edgar helped me understand better the things that I was doing in my real life that might have been more arrogant, might have been more selfish. I would also say that like Pescadillo, the character, is not like, again, just an excuse to do dad jokes. Like that was that was really the main goal of playing Pescadillo.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't thinking about it in terms of like I'm going to do a bunch of role play and get a master mask. Like that was never really the goal. The goals for me for role play at the very beginning, the whole reason Edgar was created, I was the founding member of a park that was growing really fast. And I knew I was a founding monarch, and I knew that if I stuck around as Pescadillo and continued to like be that, I knew I would get shoved into being the face of the park, whether I wanted to be or not. It
Mm-hmm.
felt like an unkind thing to do to our second monarch, Sarjenka. And and Sarjenka was really interested in doing plot and story, and so I said to her, "I will give you a villain." And that's exactly what Edgar was. He was meant, like we morphed around in terms of what we were going to do with the plot, but essentially at the end of my first term as monarch, or my last term, I guess I should say, as park monarch, I arranged to have myself assassinated, and I had someone. Alec, for those of you who've met Alec, it won't shock you that he was very thrilled to run up and stab me right after I got my lord title, making me temporarily the shortest lived member of the nobility in Rising Wind's history, which was pretty great. I had a mouth full of blood capsules, and this is where I discovered my love of doing over the top, shocking shit. And I coughed up a lungful of blood, and then I went down, and I didn't move for the next 15 minutes. And I didn't know I could do that. Like I was like, I'm just gonna do the best I can with this. I've never done this before. And so Pescadillo died, and very, very graphically. And it kicked off a 6-month long story during which time I debuted and then played the Edgar character as a visiting noble
Mm-hmm.
investigating the death of the only noble in Burning Shores history. Like, what are you people doing to your nobility, right? Like that was the whole plot, and that's where Edgar's classism grew out of and all that stuff. It was just all kind of grew very organically. And so going to Kingdom events, it was just like, well, take the show on the road, right? Like obviously, like let's do this at a on a bigger stage. Sure, why not? He was a very comfortable character for me to do. Like I could do him like physically comfortable. I could do that character for weeks on end if I really had to. I think there's something really to be said. If you want to do an immersive character, comfort is important. Being able to play that character consistently without breaking accidentally because of just pure discomfort in the mid, like I've got to get this goddamn wig off my head, like those moments. You do have those moments when you're playing a character with, if your wig is uncomfortable, just little things
Mm-hmm.
like that. So that's where Edgar kind of originated, was the desire to have Pescadillo go away, and not be part of the park while still allowing Rob Tobias, the person who is Pescadillo. Yeah, I mean, I did everything. I changed my orc profile name. I changed my, like. There were a lot of people who thought that I was literally just killing Pescadillo off as a character, and it led to a certain sense of uncertainty as well. And there was also catharsis as well when we finally, like resolve the whole storyline. We got to do a lot of fun stuff too, like
Mm-hmm.
having Pescadillo's soul be pulled back from the underworld and stuffed into Edgar's body. And so we had moments where Pescadillo and Edgar were both jockeying for control of Edgar's body, which obviously, that's just me breaking character, right? But like
Mm-hmm.
narratively, it gave me a good reason to do it. And as I said, I have a background in comedy and improv and stuff. So being able to be funny while doing it was like really, really satisfying. And then finally, the reveal of having Pescadillo finally come back, it was just like probably one of the coolest things we've done at Park since. The biggest challenge with that was actually trying to find something to follow it up.
Mm-hmm.
The dirty little secret. Role play is just emotional manipulation. That's what it is.
Do you want this
Being
taken out or edited out? Because I
No,
will.
you can leave this in. I will fully admit it. Good role play and good storytelling is about emotionally manipulating the audience. It is about making people feel something, making them feel angry, making them feel happy, making them feel sad, making them feel scared. Like any of those feelings that you can elicit, that's I think arguably that's the difference between role playing and acting, is how much you are reaching into someone's heart and just messing with it. And that's part of the reason that I love big death scenes too, is because like if you can make a character like secretly, that's my goal, is like any character that I can get our community to love is on fucking death row, because I will make you upset when that character dies. If I know I can do it to a lot of people, you best believe that that's what we're going to do. Edgar
Oh.
was slated from death from
Mm-hmm.
the moment that he got popular. The moment that like people knew him, people liked him, people were talking about him, I was like, this guy's got to die.
So, I was actually about to talk about that because
Yeah.
that was certainly a show stealer when it happened. I still have pictures of the fake blood on the floor and your body laying there for a solid 15-20 minutes. And Tyrant
Oh,
Asche did
great.
an amazing job of RPing that as well.
Ash should have been a master mask before I was. Let me be clear
Hmm.
about that. Ash has is the just he's so good at character work. And it is, I want to be very clear about this for those of you who've like seen him do the character but haven't necessarily gotten to know him. Ash is 100% acting, because he is nothing like the tyrant. In like, he doesn't treat people the way that the tyrant would, you know what I mean? He's
Hmm.
not an ego monster. He's not a callous, self-involved bastard. He's actually genuinely one of the sweetest people in our community, but he's very, very good at playing the villain. He
Hmm.
also, as a battle master, just a really high end fighter, he's one of the very few people I know who can play the villain, and also like both acting wise and on the field as like a legitimate threat who you have to fucking deal with, you know what I mean? Like, so he balances those things so well. Yeah, he's been a huge inspiration to me.
Yeah, and it's
I
always
can
oh,
tell you how
sorry.
that whole thing came together if you'd like. It is not really a secret. I've
Mm,
talked about it, to plenty of people.
sorry.
So there are a few things that came together on this, right? This was during the sort of middle of the Ash, the sort of Crown versus Midgard storyline
Hmm.
that Ash and Jack Stives put together,
Hmm.
this conflict. And I had been playing Edgar for over a year at that point, and I had been feeling like it was time for a number of reasons. I'd been feeling like it was time to have Edgar die. And I also felt like Ash was one of the people who would understand what I was doing, why I was doing it, and do the other half of the job, basically the killing me part as opposed to the me dying part.
Hmm.
Um, I knew he would get it. He would understand the vision. He would be willing to put it on during court and make it a thing that he did, and that he would be able to sell the justification for it, which in Edgar's case was embezzlement. I think that people know that at this point is Edgar was killed for the relatively minor crime of embezzlement, but also partially because he was working with Jack as
Yeah.
the prime minister of Midgard, right? And so playing with those sort of blurred lines, right? Like we don't really always work office roles into Like we'll work Monarch in, but we don't usually work Regent or Champion in too much. I've seen that that's changed a little bit with the most recent storyline at Midgard involving during Kennard's reign as Grand Duke. Sorry, not Grand Duke, Grand Duck. Um, but they did some storytelling during that reign. They only really had one event to work with, so kind of a limited size canvas to paint on. But they did a lot with it, and it was really good. Jack also contributed to that scene. Like when Edgar was killed, Jack stood up and was screaming at Ashe and had to be dragged out of court. Like we had like a whole storyline set up to where this ally of Jack was being killed for like a fairly minor crime that wouldn't normally warrant death. And we played around with this a lot. Like a lot of the time in a court, when you do assassinations, you use like a foam bat or something, or maybe that little, you've seen them at like, where the blade goes in. I wanted to get something really wicked and evil looking, so I found like a nice rubber curved evil looking dagger. The fake blood obviously was like a hugely shocking thing. I went to court with a half-gallon of fake blood taped to my chest
A half
and
gallon?
the Ziploc bag on the bottom down to where I could just clutch my chest and it would just dump blood out. And that's where the majority of that came from. In addition to that, at my waist, I had a syringe with a tube leading up to my neck so we could do an arterial spray. And that's how you got both the initial like crippling of Edgar and followed by the coup de grace. So that was mechanically how we did it. And from a like personal reason, one of the main reasons I wanted Edgar to go is because I always wanted him to die big and die bloody. But the timing was really good for their story, and I'd been sitting at 9 masks for a while, has had a lot of other people. I did not want to think about it anymore. I was, frankly, in many ways, it felt like I'm not doing any more of this award chasing bullshit. I wanted to, as I played Edgar and other characters as well, you may have interacted with me in character and not known it, which is kind of fun. Playing characters had become something I really enjoyed doing. And when I play Edgar, losing my beard was kind of a pain in the ass every time. I miss having my beard. But also, I just didn't want to care about the awards. And I found myself caring about the awards. And having Edgar die was sort of my way of going, okay, well, and scene. You can decide I'm moving on to other things, but I'm not doing any more of this. And eventually I did do a little bit more of it during my reign as Grand Duke. There was some dramatics that wound up with the monarch leaving, and I'm not going to get into the details of the whatever, but I was left again with a situation where there was potential problem, like in terms of the drama of the situation, and bringing Edgar back out. I had this in my back pocket, and I had talked to Jeff, who worked with me. Jeff and Lapis worked with me to set up a storyline where Edgar came back as Grand Duke while dead. And the whole storyline, for those of you who didn't follow it, was essentially Weekend at Bernie's. Edgar's soul wasn't back. He was literally just being puppeted by Lapis's spider strings. It was just a straight up Weekend at Bernie's thing. So in that context where I was like, okay, fine, we will bring back Edgar. There are new and fresh things for him to be annoyed about, like the fact that everybody calls him Deadgar instead. We'll trade out black hair for white to indicate I wore makeup on my neck during mid-reign that was like the visibly open neck wound that the tyrant had given him with just a little bit of dried fake blood on it. That was really satisfying to do. And Edgar was, I think, for a lot of people who had known him when he was alive, he was very animated. He was very, very quick moving, fast. Deadgar was slow. Like where Edgar had been fast, Dedgar's like mind was still being animated, but there was no soul there. There was no passion. And so
Mm.
being able to play like a very flat version of Edgar as a sort of curtain call was really, really satisfying. People who were really into the lore were like, "You can't reanimate Edgar. His soul's been trapped in." And this is I'm actually making fun of Paint a little bit there, but like Paint challenged me on that. Like as a point of lore, is like you can't reanimate him. His soul was trapped in the gem that Asche carries. Like there's lore around this. This is like you can't play this character again. And I was like, yes, I can. Let me tell the story. And we paid it off really well. It's like no, just literally corpse puppeting. That's all it is. And it was really fun to get to do like a little curtain call for Edgar. But I am, again, I said the only thing that could get me to ever play Edgar again. I'm not doing Dedgar again. The bit's been done. Going back to that well is not going to be fun or
Mhm.
interesting to me. Playing Edgar in a time travel context would be really interesting. And if I were to do that, I would 100% want to be paired with Asche in like a night quest or something where it's like Edgar and Asche alternate timeline history. Like that's really compelling to me. I could get behind playing Edgar again for that. But like that's about it.
So Night Quest, you say?
I will tell you right now, there is a well-known. I don't need to be secretive about it. Feyrain just did a night quest at Battlecry that is time travel themed.
Mm.
And it's if I do it, it is probably going to be for Feyrain. I've already told her this was a great idea. Please do it again. Give me enough heads up. I will let you have one night only, Edgar, and it will be a lot of fun, and it'll give you a fun thing to play with.
That's awesome.
I would have actually played Edgar again at Night Quest back this or earlier this month if I had known going into that Night Quest um, that it was a time travel thing. I would have absolutely played Edgar one last time for that.
Mhm.
Instead, I was a dinosaur, and that was also fun. And I'm not really complaining that loudly.
Well, I've really enjoyed listening about your RP experiences and realizing what all really goes into it.
The answer is as much as possible. I found
Hmm.
that the more effort you put in, even on just little humans are really subtle. We're more attentive than we give ourselves collectively credit for. We even when we don't see or notice or think about what it is this person is, we have all these like social cues. And I know autism's like a thing and people say, yeah, but there are some social cues that I think are even more universal than the kind of behavioral social clues that folks with autism sometimes struggle with. Even those, the little touches that I put into making Edgar who he was, they all resonated. And so just layering up as many of those as you can. It's just like a painting, right? The more detail, the more time, the more care that you put in to building that painting of a person, the more the audience will respond and the more the audience will buy that this is a real person. And I've done this several times now, and it's always rewarding when and all of my characters, even the ones who are kind of shitty people like Edgar, people don't hate it; they love to hate it, and that's a very different thing. Like a good villain is just as charming as a hero. They're just selfish, that's all. And being able to create characters that you can like see their charming, scoundrel nature, and just put your hands on your hips and go, oh, you like there's something really powerful and cool about that. And I've been on a bit of a break from doing that sort of thing, but I've been feeling the itch a lot more in the last couple months, knowing that I could have justified playing Edgar again, and at September definitely kicked it into a little bit higher of a gear. So I'm working towards it, but just like a painting takes a while to be done. You can spend months working on a painting and getting it just right. Like I'm not saying I'm going to go come play some immersive character at Bridge Wars or even March event. It might be, next Scholomance might be the next time I play or next Bridge Wars in 2026. I don't know, but I don't want to like commit to playing a character anytime soon. But it's coming. It's coming. I've got, we're in the brainstorming, sort of thinking about like, what do I want to do? Do I want to lean on an accent again? Can't be French. That we've already done that. So thinking about characters, not only that like character traits that not only are interesting and compelling and feel like a whole person, but ones that don't make you go, oh, that's Edgar, or oh, that's Nick, or oh, that's any of the other, oh, that's Terminus. Like any of the other characters I played, I want anybody I play to always be very distinct from the other characters I played.
Alrighty. What cultural aspects keep you coming back to Amtgard?
At this point, listen, during the pandemic, I moved from Chattanooga, Tennessee to Cleveland, Ohio. I moved to the Rising Winds area like right before the pandemic and was promptly locked down. Moved to a brand new city, didn't really know people very much at all. And the first thing that I did that was social after lockdowns and everything were starting to relax was Amtgard. So basically my entire social circle locally of friends, almost all of them are Amtgarders. And so part of it is that sense of community. And at this point, like even like my friends who live, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours away, a lot of them are Amtgarders too. I'm a big believer in community. I think community is incredibly important and highly underrated. So to me, I'd say that just the community being a community is very, very important to me. And one of the things that's like, it's part of why I'm a lifer. It's part of why I got my Parks heraldry tattooed on me. Like I'm fully committed. I'm bought in, and I want to do this basically until my body breaks down and I wither into a small pile of dust. I appreciate the fact that, and I know this is a non-com interview, but I'm going to talk combat real quickly and just say it. I was a sedentary person. I did not do any form of regular exercise or athletic anything prior to getting involved in Amtgard. This is a form of athletics that I like and that feels satisfying. I mentioned earlier that I did judo as a kid. I got involved with judo as a martial art because I liked the idea of doing a martial art, but I had one very specific thing that held me back for a long time. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I didn't want to practice a kick someone in the face, break their nose. That was not appealing to me. Judo is a sport, not a true like combat style. It is a sport like wrestling, and I thought to myself, okay, I can do this. I would do this. This would be fun, and I won't hurt anybody. And I did judo for a couple years, and then I broke someone's collarbone, and I never went back to doing judo again. I was like 15, and in like Street Fighter, it's a move where you grab someone by the shoulders, you put your foot in their stomach, and you like kick them back up and over your head, right? You've seen that. We were practicing that for the first time, and there's this like horseshoe thing you're supposed to like pull up. And this is my first time ever doing it. I was gonna fuck up, like anybody fucks up, right? And people don't do these things right the first time. And I put this guy went right in on his collarbone and broke it. And he's like a 35-year-old firefighter, and I'm some scrawny 15-year-old kid. And I was like, shit, this stuff is dangerous. And so I never did it again. I loved it, but I never did it again. I like combat sports, but man, Amtgard is a combat sport that I know I'm like almost certainly not going to hurt someone. Our common injuries in our sport are like twisted ankles from running, and that's not really me, you know what I mean? Who did that? That's just like shit happens. So that's one of the things I really like about it is it is a combat sport. It keeps me athletic, and it is a very low risk of serious injury, all things considered. Like, yes, I know that sometimes serious injuries do happen. I get it. Like, I know people are going to want to like bring up all those incidents, but they're very rare, especially compared to most other combat sports. So that's one of the things I really like. It's a combat sport, but it's safe. It got me interested in doing art, like leatherworking. I started doing leatherworking because of Amtgard, because there's a need, because people needed stuff made. That feeling of being able to make stuff is really, really satisfying. So that's I would say that's another big part of it. So again, but a lot of it I think is all just sort of post hoc justification for the community thing, really. I just have an amazing community in Cleveland of my Amtgard friends, and I have just an amazing community of people across the kingdom who I'm very lucky to consider my friends. who inspire me constantly and push me to do better. I like in this community that I've been like recognized for the cool stuff I've done, but I'm also not just given a free pass because people like me. That sort of accountability is really important to me too. Like we can talk about like a lot of the problems that, I mean, I'm not going to say Amtgard broadly and Rising Wind specifically don't have their challenges and problems and stuff where some of these things are not always the best and handled correctly. But like in general, I think that there's something really kind of cool about our community and the way we push each other to do better. I think that's really cool.
What's one lesson you've learned from Amtgard that you carry with you?
Hit hard, take light. That's actually a quote from Alec. Again, Alec's one of my best friends locally. Just awesome dude. He taught me a lot of what I know about fighting. And he always says that when you're fighting somebody, when you hit them, you hit hard. And when someone hits you and they don't hit very hard, you take it anyway. I think that statement says a lot. It's about honor, right? It's about taking your criticism, taking your hits. It doesn't matter what you want to call it. Like taking the things that people give you, and even if it's not very much, accepting that. Like there's just a lot of metaphor, I think, in that statement. Take hard, hit light, or hit hard, take light. Hit hard when you're going to do something, make an impact. Like be bold, be brave, try new things. Don't be scared. Hit hard and take light. The things that people give you, if it's not something much, if it's somebody who's just paying dues, but you know that they're financially struggling, and that means a lot, right? Like, and don't take that for granted. Like that's people buying into their community. No, it's not a lot of money, I guess. I'm still going to appreciate it. Take light. I think there's just a lot of beauty in that statement.
What do you hope your legacy in Amtgard will be?
I don't. I'm not trying to build a legacy or anything. I'm just trying to do a bunch of cool stuff. I guess, if you're going to make me think about it, I would say I would like to see other people try to do the thing I did with Edgar. Build a character, spend a bunch of time, love them, even if they're shitty, love them, put them out there and fully commit.
Thank you very much for all of your insights today. I've really enjoyed the interview, and it's been a lot of fun.
A lot of fun for me too. This was a lot of fun for me too. I had a really good time. Asche is great. Brill, Paint, really truly great. Like role players. Thayrain recently got her Master Mask. She's incredible. And then the other Master Mask I haven't mentioned yet is somebody, Codex. Codex does things I can't do and does them better than me.
Thank you very, very much. It's been a lot of fun, and I really enjoy learning about the complexities of RP. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you'd like to hear more about non-combat participants in Amtgard, consider clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. This lets me know you like my content and would like to listen to more in the future. If you would like someone specific to be interviewed, or you'd like to have me interview you, please reach out to my Discord server at Mellafalaman, or message me on Facebook using my real name, Megan McLean. Thank you!